Ladies and gentlemen and participants, we'll start our global executive talk very soon, so please be seated and be ready for the next session to start soon. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll now take you to a very special session, which is the Global Executive Talk. And in this session, we'll talk on how Indonesia can be balancing in this volatile and also very forward-looking era of energy. And for this, to set the tone for this Global Executive Talk, let's now pay our attention to the screen as we have a video presentation for you. Here it is.
Balancing risks and opportunities in global energy portfolio. The oil and gas sector still plays a crucial role in bridging the energy needs amidst the push for a transition to clean energy. Then, how is the oil and gas position in the energy transition? Over the past few years, low-carbon energy has significantly improved. However, its role is still minor in providing global energy needs. The Wood Mackenzie study results also showed that the energy transition will slow down. This condition will make a big contribution of oil and gas, at least for the next 10 years. Looking at the current situation and future projection, energy companies are shifting their focus to the oil and gas investments by implementing capital discipline. Referring to the Wood Mackenzie data, in 2024, investment in the upstream oil and gas sector achieved USD 500 billion, with reinvestment rate of 40%. Then how is Indonesia's opportunity, while global investments are more selective in investing? In 2025, Indonesia is projected to attract investments ranging from 1.5% to 2% of total global upstream capital expenditure. In Southeast Asia, Indonesia will also contribute around 50% of total regional capital expenditure. This is surpassing Malaysia and Thailand. To increase the investment, Indonesia needs to convince the investors that Indonesia's natural resources have competitive advantage, such as low regulatory and political risks, low emissions and production costs, rapid return on capital, and attractive fiscal policies. Moreover, currently, geopolitical and global economic conditions have become complex. The Russia and Ukraine war, the Middle East conflicts, and the US trade policies have resulted in uncertainty in the energy sector. Eventually, balancing risks and opportunities is the key factor. With the right strategies, Indonesia and the world can ensure energy security while maintaining stability.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we are ready to start with the Global Executive Talk. And we'll continue with a forward-looking conversation on how global energy players navigate investment decisions in an era of volatility and transition. This session will explore how leading companies are balancing risk and opportunity, aligning sustainability with financial performance, and shaping energy portfolios that are both resilient and future-ready. We're taking the theme, balancing risk and opportunities in the global energy portfolio. And to start this session, I would like to introduce our moderator. We are pleased to welcome a seasoned energy strategist with deep expertise in investment and corporate trends across Asia Pacific. Please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Vice Chair of Asia Pacific at Wood Mackenzie, Mr. Joshua Ngu. Please welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bapak-bapak and Ibu-ibu sekalian, very warm welcome for this panel session today. It is a true honor for Wood Mackenzie to be invited to moderate this esteemed panel that we have. Now, before I get started, let's IPA committee has asked me to kind of like have a think about how we want to start the panel. There was a bit of a discussion about whether we do a song. There was a bit of a discussion of whether we do a dance. Or in my head, I was thinking maybe I should do a Wood Mackenzie product demo. But, I'm quite sure you guys have had a long day. And please allow me to at least share a few of my thoughts and Wood Mackenzie's thoughts in terms of where we are in the world today and why this topic here is really important for all of us here today. So, this year's conference takes place against a backdrop of significant global economic uncertainty, right? I think that's definitely something that we have seen. The ongoing tariff war has disrupted the markets, right? Triggered downgrades in global growth forecasts and reignited fears of recession. And if we look at oil prices over the last 3 months, it's swung up and down. It's gone down to $60 and below for a short while. It's gone back up to $65 again. If somebody can tell me what oil prices will be in 3 months' time, please let me know. Wood Mackenzie has a forecast, but very, very keen to see what you say, right? But let's be honest, right? This is not new, right? I think the industry has gone through extremely turbulent times. We have gone through, more recently, the pandemic. We've gone through the global financial crisis. We've gone through the 2014, 2015 oil price crash. And each time, we have adapted and come out stronger. So, what's different this time? First, companies are a lot more resilient. Break-even costs have come down significantly. And if you think about where break-even costs were at about the 2014 timeframe, about 10 years ago, there was $85. It's come down half of that, and it's amazing what we've done to enable that to happen. And many companies, even at today's oil price levels, are generating healthy cash flows and returning value to shareholders. But capital discipline remains a cornerstone of the strategy. That's from the company's perspective. Second, I think governments have evolved as well. There's a lot more partnership, if you look across the world, between companies and the government to make sure that the industry remains vibrant and that we can continue to invest. It's not all places, but one example, and as we've heard earlier in the panel about Indonesia, it is definitely moving towards the direction that we want, where it's more collaboration and as a result, more investment in the country as well. Third, there has been a lot of discussion about where energy transition is going. And more often than not, there's a discussion about a delayed energy transition, right? But from our perspective, and I think from what we see, the energy transition is still happening. It's still underway. So let's not forget about that, right? In 2024 alone, right, the world added close to 600 gigawatts of renewable capacity. Right? That's a huge number. And apart from renewables, we are still seeing the development of other low-carbon technologies such as CCUS, which was widely discussed, hydrogen, for example, and electrification is accelerating. But let's be clear, right? Oil and gas still have a vital role to play. The energy landscape over the coming decades is not about one source fully replacing another. It's about coexistence. The energy system is becoming more and more interconnected than before, and we can no longer think in silos. So that's interesting, but what does that mean for Indonesia? I think first and foremost, Indonesia is blessed with abundant natural resources. But today, in a capital-constrained world, resources alone are not enough. Capital is mobile. Investors are selective. And the competition is fierce. To stay competitive, countries, including Indonesia, must continue to offer what investors are looking for. And from our perspective, in WoodMac's perspective, it is the notion of advantage resources. And what does advantage resources mean? It's low cost, lower risk, short cycle, and last but not least, low emissions, right? And from our perspective, Indonesia's energy security can truly be met through the development of its own resources, and with the right policies, partnerships, and project execution, we can unlock domestic potential and reduce the reliance on imports. So we've talked a lot, and I've talked a lot about resilience, adaptation, and the evolving energy landscape. Now I think it's time to hear directly from the leaders that are shaping the future. And so without further ado, let's welcome our distinguished guests to the stage as we kind of dive into this conversation on how they are balancing risk and opportunity in global energy portfolios. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our panelists on stage. First and foremost, our first speaker is a seasoned leader with 33 years of experience in the oil and gas industry. I'm guessing you know who you are. He began his journey as a reservoir engineer and has since held multiple senior leadership roles, including vice president of both International and Malaysia assets. Today, he leads the upstream business of one of the world's leading national oil companies. Please welcome the Executive Vice President and CEO of Upstream at PETRONAS, Mr. Jukris Abdul Wahab. Our next speaker brings a wealth of experience in business leadership and energy investment. Since joining Mubadala Energi in 2010, he has played a pivotal role in shaping its growth strategy, including leading M&A and new business development. He was appointed CEO in 2021 and continues to drive the company's global ambitions. Please join me in welcoming the Managing Director and CEO of Mubadala Energi, Sheikh Mansoor Mohamed Al-Hamid. Our final speaker is a pioneer of Indonesia's energy sector with over 4 decades of experience. He has held numerous leadership roles at MedcoEnergi, including President, Commissioner, and Director, and currently serves as President Director. He is also deeply involved in the company's sustainability and risk management efforts. Please welcome the President Director of MedcoEnergi, Pak Hilmi Panigoro. Thank you, Pak. And I'll take my place at the chair and we can get started with the conversation as well. All right. Everyone comfortable? Yes. Cool. Okay. I think before we start, we've gotten feedback in the previous panel that, from an audio perspective, it might be quite difficult for you to potentially hear us or hear me. So if you cannot hear me, please let me know and I can repeat the question as well. So let's get started, all right? I think the companies that we have here today need no introduction, but I think it would be great for each of the participants here and the panelists here to share a quick overview of your portfolio and the strategic priorities for your company. And if I may, shall we start with Jukris? Jukris.
Thank you very much, Josh. I think we are in a difficult and challenging period now. I think for PETRONAS, we have multiple businesses that we have to look after, and our priorities is always along the key core businesses in upstream, downstream, gas and maritime, and not to forget the renewable energies and also the CCS. And on upstream, the focus is a lot more on building the right portfolio, the portfolio that can stand the volatility of price. We talk about break-even price, because how do you drive the break-even price as low as possible? So that would mean that we have to be a lot more efficient, both in terms of how do we deliver the barrel, and even selection of the asset coming into the portfolio is going to be very crucial for us. So the priority for us is to look at, to work within those parameters to build the strong portfolio as much as possible. On the LNG side, we continue to establish our global presence in LNG. I think the emphasis and priorities for us is to continue to build multi-nodes supply. We are spreading our presence globally out from our traditional Bintulu area. So we are setting our base, new LNG presence in Canada and hopefully Suriname. That would be probably the next big presence in LNG for us. And as far as downstream is concerned, I think the focus for us is to pivot away from the traditional petrochemical products. We are moving away to a more specialty chemicals that finding the niche market. And of course, not to mention we are still putting a stake in the ground on renewable as part of our new energy business, keeping our feet in the ground so that we'll try to build the healthy portfolio around this segment. And not also to forget, we are also establishing the base on CCS. And CCS is going to be one of our main agenda, together with the renewable energies, as far as managing our transition energy, the energy transition progress for PETRONAS. So in the broad sense, those are some of the strategic focus what we are focusing on from upstream down to renewable business.
So I think just a follow-up question as well. It seems as though, for sure, PETRONAS is kind of invested across the entire energy value chain, right? We talked about upstream, about gas, about downstream renewables, as well as, I guess, low-carbon CCS, for example. And maybe just honing in on the topic on CCS, I guess, right? How are you thinking about that business, right? Is it more of an enabler for oil and gas development, or are you thinking of it more as something that could become like a huge industry going forward?
Well, we have a clear energy transition strategy in place for PETRONAS. Of course, the priority for us is to look at the physical decarbonization as a top priority. Then we move down the chain, and CCS and probably electrification and right down to nature-based solution as part of our energy transition agenda. Specifically on CCS, we decided to build CCS as a business, moving away from the traditional component of any gas field development. So we believe that there is actually a good market and good opportunity for us to get into services for CCS. So we are establishing the hubs, the 2-3 hubs in Malaysia. We are progressing quite well in that sense, and we are also talking to the potential emitters, from the likes of Japan, Korea, and even Singapore, for potential emission, the CO2 emission transportation, to be stored in the storage sites in Malaysia. And we are also trying to build our portfolio around CCS beyond Malaysia. We are looking at a few opportunities, in the UK as well, to try to diversify the scope of our CCS. And it is, I must say, this part of the business is rather challenging because the commercial framework is still very fluid. And it's about managing the cost correctly, because we talk about the capture of the CO2, the transportation, the processing at the terminal, and the storage at the offshore site. So it involves various cost components along the way. So the challenge for us is actually to build the commercial framework that meets the economic viability at every stage. So that's something that we are currently focusing on.
Yeah. And it seems like to be like a common theme in many of the different countries out here, and to say, hey, you know what, we need that framework for us to be able to develop CCS as well. So no, thanks for sharing. I think maybe next, Sheikh Mansoor, could you please share a bit more about what Mubadala is focused on?
Sure. First of all, Assalamu alaikum. It's a great pleasure to be back here again. First of all, let me introduce Mubadala Energy to those who doesn't know us. We are an international energy company with a diverse portfolio of operated, non-operated, owned by Mubadala Investment Company, which is wholly owned by the government of Abu Dhabi. Our operations span 11 countries, built on long-term partnership, safety and reliability. In Indonesia, we've been active here since 2004, focused on developing our gas resources responsibly, as well as especially with our recent great success with the major discoveries of Layaran and Tankulu. This is, I believe, is a key milestone that we will be committed to deliver as one of the largest acreage holders here in the country. And it's a game changer to the energy sector over here. So to our priorities, I believe our strategic priorities comes first to advance our development of Andaman blocks. Second, expanding our gas portfolio in the gas value chain, as well as exploring new energy areas such as geothermal and CCUS, and delivering all of this responsibly, safely and reliably in close collaboration with our local and international stakeholders.
Oh, thank you very much. And I guess you mentioned again, I think across upstream and CCS as well, and geothermal. I guess from your perspective, is there a specific priority, strategic focus there on any of these segments, or are you thinking about it kind of, across the board, you need to grow all of that in an extremely meaningful way?
No, I think when it comes to our gas value chain, this is a key focus for us, given where we are today in journey of the company. We have discovered major resources that are really important for the country's energy security, plus as well as aligns with the energy transition journey. I believe this is a top priority for us in order to be able to achieve in a more responsible way that aligns with the energy transition journey. When it comes to new energy areas, I believe this is something that we have taken a proactive approach, whether through Mubadala Energy or other sister companies like, for example, Masdar. So we are moving ahead in that sort of direction in order to see what sort of opportunities for Mubadala Energy, like geothermal. We are in advanced discussion in certain projects, as well as studying certain areas of CCUS as well.
And I think definitely for CCS, that's kind of under your remit and something that you would be going after in a big way as well.
Indeed. This is aligns with our strategy.
Thank you very much. Of course, last but not least, Pak Hilmi, to please share a bit more about what MedcoEnergi is focusing on.
Sure. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. MedcoEnergi, we started the company in 1980 as a drilling service provider. For 10 years, we became one of the largest market shareholder of drilling above 1,000 horsepower. And only in 1990, we started exploration and production business through acquisition. I think at that time, we acquired a small American company called Tesoro. The production is about 2,500 barrels a day. And alhamdulillah, today we are at 180,000 BOE per day. But in the course of these years, we also diversified our business. We also do mining. We are now the second largest copper and gold producer in the country. Why copper? I think later I can tell you that this is an electrification play. you know, copper is one of the best conductor for electricity. So that's why with EV development, world electrification, I think copper demand will continue to grow in the future. And the third platform, we also go into power. We are in power generation, and we use this platform to basically go into clean energy. Today we're focusing on gas and renewables. Yeah. Still mainly gas, but we also started developing geothermal and solar. Now, talking about strategic priorities, I think you have already mentioned in your introduction. Despite this pressure of energy transition, the world is still 80% dependent upon coal, oil, and gas. And with the growing world population, we talked about it earlier. In 1980, Indonesia population is only 149 million. Now it's almost double. We are at 280 million. And you know, the aspiration of the global south for improving living standard, I think that drives the global energy demand. And your company helped me with the forecast for the next decades. At least gas and oil will continue to be needed, especially in this part of the world, in Indonesia. So we as a company based in Indonesia, I think our most important strategic priorities today is to continue to grow our reserves and production in oil and gas, both exploration and acquisition. Yeah. Same with mining, I think, because it's non-renewable, so we have to continue to add reserves. And fortunately, we now have enough reserves to basically grow the mining group for the next 30 years. And power, of course. As opportunities arrive, we do want to increase our renewable energy portfolio. But as you probably understand, today the economics of these renewable projects is still very, very marginal. So hopefully it's going to get better in the future.
And I
One
guess,
more thing.
Go ahead, Pak.
In doing all of this, I also understand that, of course, we do care about climate change. So I wanted to make sure that every step of the way, in everything we do, we mobilize the latest state-of-the-art of know-how and technology to make sure that everything we do is minimized in greenhouse gas emission.
Yeah, and I guess kind of follow-up question for you as well, right? I mean, I think you're unique in a sense that you have a mining business as well. And when you think through your business kind of across all three, you know, from a capital perspective and a focus perspective, I guess, is there any conflict in terms of trying to figure that out, in terms of like where you're going to allocate the capital?
No, I don't think there is a conflict because, I mean, we're business people. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned about this advantage asset, right? Yeah. The high profitability, low risk, quick payback. There is no such thing. Well, it's like you're asking me, is that a good husband? Okay, you can have. There is no such thing. This is an art, you know. Mm-hmm. When you're looking for asset, new projects. Yeah. I mean, there is no perfect criteria, like you said in the advantage asset. I mean, so from time to time, we learn how to balance between profitability, risk, technical, social, politics. And I think with time, I mean, the management learn how to do it. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just a skill that we have to manage. And I don't think we have a set of criteria like a checklist. Yeah. But to me, it's more of an art that's the company has to have. And from time to time, of course, we change with geography and with time.
Okay, thank you. And I guess one last question on this before we move on to other parts of the conversation as well is with regards to kind of the more novel technologies. I think PETRONAS mentioned CCUS, Mubadala as well. I think from your perspective, how are you thinking about CCS then? Is it something that you're putting a lot of focus on?
Especially for Indonesia. CCS is very, very important. For oil and gas, I think CCS is, okay, this is cost and benefit consideration. Anytime we put a system, equipments to reduce the CO2, as long as the costs can be justified and still make the project commercially economics, we'll do it. Yeah. But the problem is, I mean, the more CO2 content, it's going to be more expensive. So this is an engineering challenge.
Correct.
And especially in Indonesia today, I think one of the biggest challenges for CO2 emission, CCS, is in Java Island. You know, we have more than 20 gigawatts of coal-fired power plants. If someone can capture, pipe, and re-inject that gas into depleted reservoir around Java, I think we can prolong the use of this coal-fired power plant and provide a cheap energy, provided the cost of capturing, transporting, and injecting can be economically justified.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest challenge.
That's the biggest challenge.
But we probably need to start somewhere as well.
Yeah.
So I guess you've shared a lot about kind of your portfolio, your business, and kind of strategy you have. And then maybe if you think out loud here and say, you know, what is the one biggest challenge that you have when you're thinking about your business, and one biggest opportunity you have that you think that you really cannot let go of, what would that be? And maybe it's a question for all of you as well, maybe starting with Jukris.
Well, Josh, earlier in your opening, you mentioned about we are living in a very capital-constrained environment, and I guess it is true for everyone here, that everyone is facing the capital crunch. You know, the limited capital ability really force us to think about where best we can deploy this capital. I guess some of the challenges that we are seeing today, apart from the capital, is, as we speak, you know, we see the lot of volatility in the price. The dynamics of the industry is so fluid, and the price is heading south. The crude oil output has gone up. You know, the OPEC Plus has decided to reduce the cut. So, and of course, the geopolitics, the new policies introduced by the administrations across the globe, that doesn't help. It disrupts the dynamics of the industries. It disrupts the supply chain dynamics. But I guess, you know, we have been going through this ups and downs for many years. It's probably one of the, you know, challenges that we have to face, you know, and when the time comes. I guess, you know, like you said, the question is how fast can we respond to these challenges? You can't control what is happening out there. You can't control what geopolitics is all about, you know. The best way is for us to respond internally. How do you build a robust portfolio, for example, that can thrive under this challenging environment? For PETRONAS, it's very clear. We want to build a strong portfolio around a portfolio that can stand the volatility of the price. 10 years ago, you know, break-even price could be $70, $80. We are looking at something, you know, below $50 or even below $40. That probably define, you know, what we term as a healthy portfolio. And that is not enough. Managing the portfolio mix is not the only way to drive through this challenge. Internally, the way we do things has got to change. It has to be drastically changed. You know, with the advent of artificial intelligence, how do you run the business these days? It's got to be completely different. We can't afford to continue doing the traditional way of working. Certain fundamental processes and work practices has got to go. But this is a hard call. It is just difficult to create this change, you know, realistically. And in some organizations, we have been hearing jobs have been cut, thousands of layoffs is happening around us, and we are not spared. You know, if you want to move forward, we have to have an organization that is lean and agile. You can't live with multi-layers of approval, double, multiple assurances, taking very safe bet. I think those are some of the nuances that we got to deal with moving forward. So we talk about challenges, it's not one, it's the multiple of them. And the question is how do we respond to it? We have learned through these difficulties. I guess we have a way to get out of the situation. And I think the question for us is how quick, how ready are you to respond to these changes? That's my take on this.
Yeah. And you mentioned something very interesting about AI, and we can park that a bit for a later conversation, because I think it's something that is really kind of reverberating around the industry. And I think it's something that we can have a conversation about. But before
Josh, allow me to probably add on one more point.
No problem.
You talk about the opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Amidst all these challenges. I think what we are seeing in the industry today is the customers' needs are evolving. Traditionally in the past, customers are looking for a single product. LNG buyers, petrochemical buyers. But today, what we are seeing, the single customer looking for multiple products. So for PETRONAS, we have been building this portfolio of businesses, upstream, LNG, downstream petrochemicals, moving into specialty chemical. Now we are moving into bio-based fuel. And the question is, how do you try to maximize and meet the needs of these evolving customers? So we would like to call ourselves an energy superstore, where the proposition moving forward is not just a single product, it's going to be a multiple products offering. For example, like coupling the LNG and low carbon solution is something that we are also putting as a value proposition to the customers. And it is about what the customers want. You produce based on what the customers want, rather than you sell what you produce. Yeah. So I think this is important for us to understand the needs of the customers, and the evolution is happening quite fast as we speak. So that's the angle that we are taking at, looking at how do we try to meet the needs of the customers as we evolve.
No, very interesting. So you mentioned, was it a mega store that you were talking about, just superstore? So effectively, when a customer comes to you, they're spot for choices, effectively, right? So that's really interesting. Sheikh Mansoor, I guess from your perspective, do you kind of share that same view, or kind of from your perspective, there are other challenges that you think are more pertinent?
Thank you, George. I think, just complimenting my colleagues here, I think I'm going to look at the challenges from the perspective of opportunities. And there are three major areas of opportunities, and all of them tied with the global and regional energy transition. First, gas is a strategic priority. Developing gas resources is a top priority. It's a transitional fuel that's emitting 50% than coal, benefiting from the existing infrastructure. In Southeast Asia, where coal is powering almost half of the electricity generation and accounts almost 80% of the energy sector's emissions, according to IEA, gas is the quickest path to lower carbon. And while everyone considers it as a bridge fuel, in our belief, it's a long-term solution that will play a vital role in the energy mix alongside renewable. It's lower carbon and safe and reliable as well. And second thing, which is as well important, is the sustainability and lower carbon focus. We believe energy security and energy transition goes hand in hand. Both of them are important. So that's why our strategy to go after lower carbon solutions, that includes gas and in new energy areas as well. So this will remain our growing part of the portfolio. And third, which is very important as well, is ensuring equitable and safe transition. According to World Bank, around 4 billion people worldwide is lacking clean, reliable cooking energy. So as we pursue this journey, we need to ensure energy security, affordability, and human development is at the core of everything we do. this opportunity is for us to proceed with, and the journey is not just for the global market, but as well for the people and their communities. So that's from our perspective.
And it's kind of seems it's about equitable energy transition and no one gets left behind. I guess that's important, and everyone gets access to the energy they deserve as well. And it could be gas, it could be solar, it could be wind, it could be whatever it is that they need. What about you, Hilmi? Like, what do you think is the biggest challenge?
Let me add something that's probably not applicable to them.
All right, sure.
Because they are big and they are national oil companies.
Okay.
First one, with this trend of deglobalization, countries tend to be more resource nationalism. So they will keep the best asset for, of course, their NOCs, right? That leaves us the difficult ones.
Yeah.
Number two, for a small company like us, with this pressure of energy transition, there are many international banks who doesn't want to finance oil and gas, especially coal. Yeah. Oh, gas still okay.
Gas still okay.
Yeah, but oil and coal is more difficult.
Yeah.
So that also limit our access to financing, which means a higher pricing.
Yeah.
So those are, to me, that I can add on as two more challenges, especially for companies our size. But there are also opportunities. I want to give you one example. I mean, companies like us can move very quickly. And today, I think the government has been very, very supportive. Especially, I'm talking about Indonesia today. The government has a very, I would say, aggressive ambition to increase oil and gas production. So they will do anything to help us make that happen. I'll give you one example. I mean, last week, we have just inaugurated two marginal fields called Forel and Trubuk. It's 20,000 barrels of oil per day and 60 million cubic of gas per day. Actually, that field was discovered in 1984 and considered small marginal fields. But when we took over from Conoco in 2015, we looked at the asset and we told the government, we can do this, but we need a new terms. So we negotiate with the regulator, and finally we agreed with what we call a sliding scale split as a function of oil price. Alhamdulillah, now it's on stream, and I think it's a good project. So I think this is the kind of thing that is probably a good opportunities for companies, especially those operating in Indonesia today. Maybe in other countries as well, but this is the example that I can show you in Indonesia.
Yeah, no, I think that's kind of an amazing story in terms of how much, some of the flexibility, I would have to say, that the government has allowed for some of these historically stranded assets to be developed as well. I guess just staying on that point around fiscal terms, fiscal incentives, that's one part, I guess, of that conversation in terms of what it needs to be what a country needs to have to attract investment. I guess the other part here is the non-fiscal aspects of a certain regime as well. Any thoughts on that in terms of like what are the key things that you're looking out for?
I think, on top of fiscal terms, there are many parameters there, but non-tax, non-fiscal terms, I think one of the key things today that Indonesia needs to show is sanctity of contract, which is very important because in the past, I think, for the right or wrong reason, investors in Indonesia has been disappointed for that particular aspect. Hopefully, from now on, it will never happen again.
And I guess from that perspective as well, especially for an international company, I guess not necessarily for even a local company, it's really hard to kind of get through that risk management committee to say, hey, you know what, we can sanction that project as well. Well, I think we can leave it at that for the time being. I think, the previous panel has talked a lot about Indonesia, and maybe we can come back to some of the discussion earlier around probably AI, I guess. So that's really interesting, and Jukris, you mentioned here in terms of the need to be agile, the need to be nimble, and of course, this strive to reduce break-even costs? I think, where we are right now, effectively the world has cut the break-even cost by nearly half, right? As I mentioned earlier, from about 10 years ago, below $50 right now. From your perspective, yes, do you think we can still go lower? And is AI part of the solution, or what else could drive that cost lower?
Obviously, AI is not the only solution, Josh. I think we see AI play it will play a pivotal role in various segments of our businesses. And for PETRONAS, we are very conscious about how do we deliver the results better than before. For example, like, from discovery or even pre-drill right down to first production. The question now is that the challenge that was to ourselves is that how do you cut short the time? Typically, sometimes, post-discovery, you took about 6-7 years to monetize the resources. That's the typical conventional way of doing things. Yeah. But today, with the accessibility to a lot of data that we have globally, so how do we take advantage of those and the advent of artificial intelligence actually to train the machines so that it helps us to see things better earlier. And that will help us to compress the time and start making decisions without having to have physical data in place. So those are the area where we see that it will probably drive the systemic shift in the way we do things. Yeah. And we believe that we can't stay where we are today. There's a lot of competition around us, and we have seen various examples that people convert discoveries to first oil in less than 3 years. Yeah. So the question is that you can't be sticking to your own conventional way of doing things. Yeah. So we see a lot of space of AI deployment in this case. And that's just one example, But there are many other parts of the businesses that we want to see things to be drastically improved. Operational efficiency. We talk about driving the operating costs down. We talk about bringing down the break-even price. These are all can be realized through taking advantage of the data that we have, coupled with the machine learning and AI, and that will help us to speed up things and make decisions faster and see opportunities where we did not see it before. So we believe that that the deployment of AI will be very key for us. And of course, you need to collaborate with many people, to realize these opportunities. And we become a center stage in terms of how do we drive efficiency in the way we do things.
Thank you. Sheikh Mansoor, anything to kind of add from a cost efficiency perspective or AI perspective as well in terms of what
I believe, George, I think for AI is something that is really important for humanity. I believe this is something that not just as Mubadala Energy representing a company, I think it's from a governmental level, we've taken a serious steps forward ahead of the future, to consider that tool in order to serve the humanity. From our perspective as Mubadala Energy, this year is a very important year for us because we are making sure that in every single corner of the company, we need to have an AI tool to serve our business, whether it's an operational, whether in safety, because it's an unlimited tool that can serve the business in many ways. The way that we frame it, we want to align it with our strategy. So I think for us, it's very important. We've started that since last year with one of our major operation in Pigaga. We rolled out digital twin in our Pigaga gas field, which will complement with it an AI tool in order to enhance safety, efficiency, and as well maximize from the project itself. So we want to maintain that as well in different areas of the company to ensure that we are up to speed when it comes to AI transformation. And hopefully, inshallah, there will be more surprises during the year I don't want to ruin the surprise of my team. Hopefully by sometime Q2, Q3, Q4, we have so many initiatives that we can talk about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I guess if we move forward with our conversation as well and talking about balancing risk and opportunities, the fundamental question here is when you're making investment decisions, I guess, like what are you looking out for? In the opening speech earlier, I talked about what Pak Hilmi says is a unicorn that can never be found. But I think from your perspective, like is there one aspect of it that you're looking at, or how are you thinking about, right, this is the right project for me to invest in? And maybe starting with you, Pak Hilmi, what do you think?
I think this is the skill that we have to learn, and we continue to learn because things change.
Yeah.
I mean, as I said, I've been in this business for 40 years, and we have a management team who from time to time dealing with this, and this is something that we do every day. Looking at profitability, risk, payout, and difficulties, and all kinds of things. And it's very difficult to find that one is more important than the other because they're all, important in our decision. So, as I said, we just need to learn and learn and learn. And that skill is there. We make mistake, and so be it. And we improve it in the future. Let me give you one example. We invested in Libya in 2006.
Yeah.
We found a big discovery. We spent $250 million to appraise. After we finished the FID, the war started. It's 100,000 barrels a day field, and we cannot develop. Yeah, it's an expensive lesson, but of course, from that, now we add additional criteria in how we make a decision. I think we need to be more careful in studying the geopolitics. But again, this is something changed from time to time.
It's above ground risk, I guess. Sheikh Mansoor, from your perspective, is it the same, or how are you thinking about it?
Can you, if you may allow me, repeat your question so that?
Yeah, no. So I was talking about making investment decisions and which criteria do you look at when you're saying, this project is a go, or this project is maybe needs a bit of a reworking from that perspective.
No, I think for us, our investment decision is guided by a strategic framework, which is balances between value, sustainability, and long-term impact. And there are three key considerations that stands out: strategic fit and growth potential. So opportunities that we go after has to align with the energy transition, while as well allows us to expand in the gas value chain, exploring new energy areas, and decarbonizing our operation. This is one. And second, as well as sustainability and lower carbon focus, I think this is important because when we go looking into new energy areas, we understand that there are certain challenges, especially with the energy security. So we need to balance between both, and we ensure that this is something that part of our strategy. And third, strong and long-term partnership. I believe we prioritize cultural alignment that is based on shared ambitions. That's why we capitalize on new investments that are built on partnership that have commitment on growth and long-term collaboration with shared values as well. Just for example, in our recent entry in a new investment in US, we have invested in a company called Sotex Holdco, which is Mubadala Energy acquiring 24.1% shares in this company alongside Cambridge. This investment ticked all the boxes. It got us into a key market in US, expanded our portfolio, entering into a full gas value chain. So this kind of opportunity that we look after.
No, thank you very much. And Jukris, anything to add from your end as well?
Yeah, each company will have a different, risk appetite and risk and the criteria for investment. I think for us, we do have sets of criteria. We talk about what qualify as a good investment, right? And under very capital constrained environment, there are a lot more, I would say, a lot more stringent requirements to look at, how best can we deploy the capital. I think for us is obviously returns. I mean, the first hurdle it has got to be returns. Any investment that doesn't meet the hurdle rate is obvious, right?
Yep.
But even though we can surpass certain returns, there are other criteria that we need to satisfy. Low carbon emission, for example, we are very conscious about that because there's an agenda, strategy that we want to make sure we build a portfolio around low carbon assets, and it's very important for us to make sure that when you make the investment decision, return low carbon and something that fit into your portfolio, whether the asset or investment that you put in would allow you to improve the entire portfolio break-even price. If it does not, then we probably say, how can we improve it further, right? And obviously the fourth item is on the risk appetite. Multiple risk elements that we need to look at. And I think the operational and technical risks are quite common.
Yeah, correct.
I think what differentiates each company's risk appetite is how do you accept the above ground risk. I mean, we are operating in very different geographies, from Canada right down to Turkmenistan. The risk profile are all different. So the question now is that, you can't be putting the same risk framework on every single investment decision. You have got to evaluate, what is your risk appetite in each of these investments. There are certain geographies that we have to be more receptive to higher above ground risk. And we must be prepared to build the mitigations, how do you go through this risk as you go. Yeah. So, there are certain sets of criteria. Yeah. There are certain nuances about the investment that we have to deal with. Correct. And indeed the risk appetite. How strong is your risk appetite to deploy this capital? So it has to be taken into account, as an integrated decision making.
Yeah. And I think to your point earlier as well, there's also a portfolio element to it to say how much exposure do you want in any single location as well. You probably answered, and so a question just came in, and you probably answered the question a bit. And maybe I'll rephrase that question here in terms of, from your perspective, and I guess from all the panelists' perspective, how do you balance, I guess, the short-term needs for returns versus the investment in some of the longer-term, more novel, technologies that may need some time to become commercial, right? And I think, Jukris, maybe anything do you want to? How do you think about that, or?
In upstream investment, we have never taken the short-term view. All of our investment has got to take a long-term view. And there's no such thing as, you put the money today, you expect the return tomorrow. But there are types of asset that we consciously make to build in our portfolio that allows us to have a bit more flexibility in terms of how do you fast-track the cash generations. Typically, a gas asset, we should require integration with LNG, for example, but will take a bit of time to monetize, right? There are assets that allows us flexibility for fast cash generation, for example, like the unconventional resources. Yep. It allows us flexibility to ramp up and backtrack the investment. So it allows us to do that. There's a lot of flexibility around the unconventional asset for us to do that. And of course, we are not ruling out building a healthy liquid portfolio. Yep. Oil is still a good asset to have. Yeah, people talk about energy transition, yes. Our portfolio is heavy, is gas heavy, but we don't rule out building the portfolio around liquid because we believe that these are fast cash generation type of asset that we need to have. Of course, you are subjected to a lot of volatility, price volatility, and so on and so forth, but there are this conscious decision that we have to build, so that the portfolio is robust enough to go through. It's a mix of fast cash generation, value integration, low risk, high return kind of things. So it's all culminating into how you define the right portfolio, and it was done on a very conscious basis.
And yeah, and it comes back to the investment criteria that you mentioned earlier in terms of how that all plays out as well. Sheikh Mansoor, anything from your perspective to add?
I think going back when the last 3 years, before that we have updated our strategy. Before we used to look at upstream alone as focusing on investing in upstream businesses. Again, and I think for us, we are looking at a long-term partnership, long-term impact. But this doesn't mean that we don't balance our risk appetite in respect to expanding a new opportunity. So we decided to update our strategy back in 2021, where we considered believing in that gas is a key transition fuel, and it's going to be important that we expand that scope of expanding in the value chain. And looking into that sort of target of long-term positive impact, whether it is related to the energy transition or with the energy security. We believe that some sort of balance between short-term, medium-term is very important, that will enable us to align with our investment criteria. Getting into the value chain will generate that sort of requirement in generating the returns that aligns with our strategy of investment, plus giving us that sort of growth momentum, expanding our portfolio throughout the full value chain. So I think it's a balanced approach that we are considering as part of our latest strategy, that knowing that this is with the current status of the sector and the industry and the demands that is rising from this sector, I think there's a potential of opportunity for the companies' investments, plus for the nations as well, to meet their demand. So we're taking that sort of pragmatic approach more rather than taking that sort of case by case in certain investments.
No, thank you very much. Hilmi, I think there's a question for you. I guess
it's basically the same thing.
No, it's a new question there. So I guess, the question on the floor was really with regards to kind of the acquisitions and the partnerships you have in transforming MedcoEnergi into what it is today. What was the thinking behind that, and how do you kind of figure out and the game plan or the roadmap into getting to where you are today?
As I said, if you ask me about strategic priority on oil and gas in Indonesia and ASEAN, it's very clear. We want to add reserves and production. And for companies our size, I think partnership, collaboration is the key for us to grow faster. So that's why every time we find new opportunities, we talk to our partners. More than happy to partner with PETRONAS, happy to partner with Mubadala. And now we have partnership in almost all of our blocks. Some of them big trading house, the majors, independent, NOCs. And so far, I think that's how we grow. There is no block that we have 100% owned by us, no. Okay. It's always partnership with other companies.
Thank you very much for the answer. And I think we are coming to the end of this panel session. We've talked pretty much around the world and across all the different type of topics, whether it's investment criteria, thinking about the balance of your portfolio. But to close, I guess the one question I do have is, if you have one message to share with your audience around balancing risk and the opportunities that you have, what would it be? I'll start with Jukris first, because I think I know what Hilmi is going to say. Jukris.
Well, I guess it's about taking into consideration the multiple factors. What type of portfolio do you want to have in your stable, and the needs to actually to build efficiency in the organization is also important to drive value. And I forgot to mention that one other parameters that I think is very important for us is taking advantage on partnership and collaboration. Because in this world today, you can't work alone. The partnership and collaboration is key to us because we can leverage the partners' strength as we go, and to build the strength of the portfolio as well as driving internal efficiencies. I think those are the three things that I would probably might take away.
Sheikh Mansoor, anything for you from your perspective?
For us, I think opportunities and challenges are clear. Is meeting the energy security while advancing energy transition. And meeting both objectives requires strong partnership. This to unlock capital and support innovation, plus as well attracts new international energy companies who can execute at scale with a track record to accelerate delivery of these projects. And with that in mind as well, it's very important to have that a clear, stable regulatory framework to encourage these investments. And in the end, we cannot do that only if we work closely together.
Thank you very much. And Pak Hilmi.
The only thing I want to add, I've been saying grow oil and gas, but when I said we want to do it in a way that greenhouse gas emission is minimized, and I really meant it.
Yeah.
In the last 5 years, we have initiated more than 100 initiatives implemented to reduce the way we conduct our business and greenhouse gas emission minimized. From these 100 projects, in the last 5 years, we have reduced our CO2 emission by almost 30%. So, I said, we continue to grow the fossil, but we do it in a responsible way.
Thank you very much for all your sharing as well. And I guess before I close the session, I think from my perspective, and as I reflect on the conversation that we've had today around balancing risk and rewards in the energy industry, we didn't necessarily talk about upstream oil and gas as well. For me, the learning here is this, right? I think first is that risk and the risk tolerance for each company it's different, right? And I think that's the first thing that we need to acknowledge. And when it comes to making investments, the first part here is the financial metrics is a given, right? Given the returns, how financially robust these investments are, the payback periods and all that kind of stuff, hurdle rates, those are all a given, and it's part of the DNA of companies. But there are I would say, non-tangible aspects of things outside of the financial side, whereas, a lot of examples given in terms of above ground risk, a lot of discussion about how that asset can continue to be operationally safe, sound, and of course efficient in many ways. But also at the same time, the common topic around greenhouse gas emission and Scope 1, Scope 2 emissions, that's a really important part of that decision making as well. And it seems as though it is not a separate conversation, it is very much part of that conversation in terms of how you're making your investment decisions as well. And last but not least, I guess when it comes to the technologies that we talked about, the low carbon technology we talk about, especially when it comes to CCS, I think that's very much part of the focus areas that you have. It may not necessarily be most commercial, especially when it comes to taking third-party CO2 and storing it, but the potential is there. It is really important, but meanwhile, it is effectively a lever that you have for you to decarbonize your existing operations as well. I think for me that was really interesting and really important for me to hear and to learn as well. And I hope the audience here also learned a lot out of this discussion. So thank you very much for your sharing, and again, thank you very much for being open. And so hopefully we'll see you next year in IPA. Hopefully I am invited back to IPA. So, okay, let's just close this session. And if there's any questions, of course, I think we can have that discussion with each and every one of us after the session as well. So thank you very much.
Let's give a big round of applause for this session, exceptional one. Thank you, Mr. Joshua Ngu, for moderating the session. And now we invite all speakers and moderator to stand in front of their sofas and receive a memento from the IPA board member. And for this, we kindly invite Mr. Sergio Mora Diaz-Guerra, Mr. Yuzaini bin Muhammad Yusuf, and Mr. Abdul Abu Ali to come on stage and present the mementos to our speakers and moderator for this Global Executive Talk. In the discussion, it was explored the strategies for managing global energy investments in the midst of market volatility, how to balance sustainability with financial performance. And also speakers shared to all of us their insights on capturing emerging opportunities, mitigating risks, and build resilient and future-ready energy portfolio. Hopefully these insights would be actionable for all of us here in the volatile markets and a very challenging world as well. Thank you so much. And these mementos are our appreciation for their contribution to IPA Convex. And this is the photo opportunity. Don't forget to smile, gentlemen. All right, one more time. We'll use this opportunity for photo session in 3, 2, 1. We thank you, we thank moderator, we thank speakers to have shared their valuable insights in this Global Executive Talk. And ladies and gentlemen, after this we'll still have one more session in this plenary, and of course, you don't want to miss that, so please stay put in the Nusantara Hall as we'll begin very shortly with our third session in this afternoon. And in this next session, we'll dive deeper into what it takes to make sure that we reach energy resiliency, especially as Indonesia aims for energy resiliency as President Prabowo's aspiration in his cabinet and administration.